This time on Low Boost, we're doing a timing cover and a timing chain install on our 1966 Ford Mustang. If you're new to the channel, we're swapping a 302 engine into a 1966 Ford Mustang, and when we tried to do this the last time, we ran into a few snags. This engine is actually out of a 1970 Ford Bronco, so the oil pan did not fit, and we tried for a while to see if we can get it to work, and you just have to make sure that when you put one of these in, you have the proper oil pan. This oil pan was hitting the steering rack and the cross member, so we had to pull it out, and we have to replace the oil pan, and while we're there, we're going to just do the timing cover as well, because the oil pan doesn't have a dipstick in the oil pan. It's actually on the timing cover. So we're going to change out the timing cover to have everything be how it's supposed to be on a 1966 Mustang. Here we go. As we were here taking a look at, our new oil pan, we got the new dipstick on here. Everything's just kind of test fitted on. We realized that the dipstick on the Mustangs are different from the Broncos. The Bronco dipstick will be in the actual oil pan, which they're really not that good because they leak from there. But so we're gonna actually have to use a dipstick that's located here on the timing cover. Only problem is we were trying to get this off. We kind of took the water pump off because we're gonna replace that too, and it cracked. So we gotta get a new one. So the problem here is we gotta take the harmonic balancer off. So if anybody has ever thought about getting a big Ugga-Dugga machine impact gun, now is the time to do it. Because if you try to actually just use a wrench on this or a torque wrench, you're gonna really have a hard time getting it off, especially if you don't have a way of locking up the flywheel on the other side. But Ugga-Dugga machine, this sucker came right off. And that's probably the easier part of doing this, because the hard part is actually pulling this off. So we got some gear pullers, we're gonna pull it off that way. And once we get that off, we can take the timing cover off and put the new timing cover on with the proper dipstick here. Might get an aftermarket one, I'll show you guys that too. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, continue to follow along. We gotta get a new timing cover. And once that was already off, we noticed that this chain has a lot of slack. Now, the engine ran fine before, and it probably would run okay. But when you have slack like this, there is a chance that the cam timing could be off and that it could run a little rough. So while we're here, we're just gonna replace we're gonna replace the chain and the two sprockets, just so we know that we are eliminating one thing that could be wrong with the engine. We don't think there's anything else wrong, but I do think it'll run better in the long run if we get a new timing chain. Before we're gonna do that, we're gonna clean all the gasket surface, and then we'll get started on pulling this off and putting the new one on.
I'm using a razor blade and WD-40 here. I don't want to use sandpaper because I don't want to take off metal off of the block. That's not a good idea. Razor blade.
So once the surface has been razor bladed pretty good, just like to hit everything with some brake cleaner. All right, to get this off, I'm not using a lot of leverage, just more than finger stuff. So just kind of slowly loosen this up and work it out. I know it looks weird, I'm not using a lot of leverage at all, but it is coming out. Might even be able to use a finger at this point. Slowly working it off. More of it's coming off as there we go. So we're gonna pull it straight back like that, keep the timing set and everything in the order, and then I'll show you where it's supposed to be. You see that notch there means you're top dead center. That little triangle at the top of that cog and the little notch at the bottom of the top one lets you know, just like that, you're at top dead center. So we're gonna keep that consistency.
I know what you're going to say, but in the interest of time, we're not going to replace the cam, but I am going to clean the cam retainer just to make sure it's got a good seal.
Now that I've cleaned this up, it tells you which way to do it, back and bottom. So that's exactly how it has to go back on. And I cleaned up the surface here just enough to get a nice mating surface, and then we're gonna use blue thread locker to put the bolts back on and to make sure everything's sealed up nice. So, back, bottom, flip it around, back, bottom, and that's how it's gonna go back on. Now, I'm just gonna thread this in just to hold it, but they do recommend using thread locker blue just to have a good seal so it doesn't leak any oil. And you wanna use a small ass torque wrench that does 120 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. You want 120 inch-pounds. If you do 120 foot-pounds, you'd be crying yourself in the shower at night, because you're probably gonna need to get a different engine or get these ones removed. It's gonna make it, you're gonna be real sad. That's it. We went ahead and oiled it up just to double check our positions. Feed it back on here. You want to make sure that the key is on the right one you want to be on first. That slides in. See the key, how it lines up? That should be good there. And we're slowly going to work this puppy on. Once this is kind of in position, you can use a little mallet to give it a love tap. Don't want to hit it too hard. All right, so once it's on, torque down. I ended up not using the eccentric for the fuel pump because we're gonna run electric fuel pump. Just gives it better balance, I guess. Just in theory in my head. 45 foot-pounds here. And then you can see that it's right up and down now. If you rotate this a little bit, they'll line up perfectly. But that's how it looks. Then I just dumped oil all over it. I didn't have any assembly lube, so if you don't have assembly lube, you can just use oil. Now we'll get started on putting the gaskets on and everything else. The reason we had to get a new timing cover to begin with is because the other one we had a broken off dipstick, and a lot of these old Broncos didn't even use that hole right there, which is for a dipstick, so we had to get a new one. This one's aluminum. I got it on Summit. Nothing crazy, nothing special here, but what we're gonna do is I'll just blast the inside of this with brake cleaner just to make sure all the debris is out of it. Put the gaskets on with some RTV in some extra places, and we'll be good to go. We're also gonna put the front main seal on as well. Let's check it out. All right, so right now we're putting the front main seal on. Just to cover my own butt a little better, I am gonna use a little bit of gasket maker over the front. Not even a lot, just enough. Give me a little extra seal. It actually goes down decently well. I'm just gonna use this with a mallet. My dad actually had some of this Permatex gasket sealer lying around, so throw some of this stuff on instead. Just easier, probably gets more consistent. Next, I'll put the gasket on, get it in position. It's actually adhesing there pretty good. It's kind of holding itself, which is good. It'll be easier to line up. Got it on the gasket. And then this stuff actually just, it's pretty good. Works decent. Just paint it right on where it's got to go.
All I have to do next is put the timing cover on, and I'm not going to torque it down all the way because I'm going to put the oil pan on and I want everything to kind of go together perfectly. But the proper torque spec for the front timing cover bolts is 15 foot-pounds. A lot more videos on the way on our 1966 Ford Mustang, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button because they're going to be coming out rapid fire really soon. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.